To speak of being chosen is not to speak of favoritism, nor of a mystical privilege granted to a select few. It is to speak of awakening. There comes a moment in certain lives when ordinary existence no longer satisfies the inner voice. A quiet unrest begins to stir, not as anxiety, but as a summons. You sense that you are being called inward, asked to examine the architecture of your own soul. This awakening does not arrive with applause or recognition. It often comes disguised as dissatisfaction, as questions that refuse to be silenced. Why am I here? What is required of me? Why does comfort feel incomplete? In this stage, the chosen one does not yet feel powerful. They feel unsettled. They begin to recognize patterns, wounds, talents, and responsibilities that others may overlook. It is not an elevation above humanity, but a deeper descent into it. To be chosen means to become conscious of your own depth. It means realizing that your life is not accidental, that your experiences carry symbolic weight. The awakening is subtle, yet irreversible. Once you have heard the inner call, you cannot return to sleep. As this awareness grows, so does responsibility. Being chosen is not about being rescued from difficulty, it is about being prepared through it. The awakening exposes your strengths, but it also reveals your shadows. You begin to see the contradictions within yourself, the fears you once justified, the habits that kept you small. This realization can be uncomfortable, even painful, because it strips away illusions. Yet this stripping is necessary. Without it, there can be no authentic transformation. The chosen individual learns that awakening demands honesty. It asks you to confront the parts of yourself that you once avoided. It teaches you that purpose is not handed to you fully formed. It is carved out of your willingness to grow. In this process, you may feel alone, misunderstood, or even questioned by others, but the call remains steady. It does not shout, it persists. And as you respond to it with courage and reflection, you begin to sense a deeper alignment forming within. The awakening is the first verdict in your favor because it proves that you are capable of consciousness, growth, and transformation beyond the ordinary. There are seasons in life when it feels as though you are standing in a courtroom without walls. Circumstances accuse you. Memories testify against you. The mistakes of yesterday seem to echo louder than the progress of today. In such moments, the phrase that God closed your case becomes more than poetry. It becomes a symbol of divine completion. It suggests that there exists a higher order of justice beyond human opinion and self-condemnation. The case represents every doubt that tried to define you, every label that attempted to limit you, every failure that seemed final. Yet divine closure does not erase the past. It redeems it. It declares that the lessons have been learned, the transformation has occurred, and the season of accusation has fulfilled its purpose. This closure is not dramatic. It often arrives quietly, like a deep breath after a long struggle. You realize that what once haunted you no longer has authority. The internal trial ends not because you argued perfectly, but because growth rendered the argument unnecessary. When a case is closed in the spiritual sense, it marks the end of striving for validation. Many people spend years attempting to prove themselves to others, to silence critics, or to outshine their own insecurities. But divine closure shifts the focus inward. It affirms that your worth was never on trial in the first place. The hardships you endured were not evidence against you, they were evidence of your becoming. In this realization, something profound changes. You stop rehearsing old wounds, you stop reliving past judgments. Instead, you begin to walk with a quiet certainty that your story is under higher authorship. This does not mean life becomes effortless. Challenges may still appear, but they no longer feel like accusations. They feel like assignments. The verdict of closure grants peace, not arrogance. It invites humility, because you understand that the process shaped you. And in that shaping, you discover that victory was not about defeating others, but about outgrowing the version of yourself that once believed you were condemned. Suffering and isolation are often misunderstood as signs of abandonment, yet in the journey of the chosen, they function as instruments of formation. There are stretches of life when companionship fades, when familiar voices grow distant, and when the path ahead seems unshared. In these quiet corridors, one may wonder whether the silence signifies rejection. Yet isolation has a hidden purpose. It removes distraction. It strips away borrowed identities. It compels you to sit with your own thoughts without interruption. Suffering, likewise, is not merely pain. It is pressure that reveals structure. Under pressure, what is weak cracks, and what is authentic strengthens. The chosen individual does not seek suffering, but neither do they waste it. They begin to ask what it is teaching rather than why it arrived. In that shift, endurance transforms into insight. What once felt like loneliness becomes initiation. The absence of constant affirmation forces the soul to discover its own voice. Through isolation, a deeper awareness is born. When external applause fades, you are confronted with your intrinsic worth. When no one watches, your integrity is tested. In suffering, illusions dissolve. You can no longer pretend to be what you are not, because hardship exposes pretense. This exposure can feel severe, but it is cleansing. The chosen learn that strength is not loud, it is steady. It is the quiet decision to continue when there is no immediate reward. Over time, you recognize that isolation did not diminish you. It clarified you. It taught you to rely on inner conviction rather than external validation. It cultivated patience, depth, and resilience. When the season shifts and connection returns, you are no longer the same person who entered the silence. You carry substance. You carry understanding. And in retrospect, you see that suffering was not a sentence against you, but a forge that shaped your character. In that shaping, your foundation became unshakable, not because you avoided pain, but because you allowed it to refine you. Every chosen path eventually leads to a confrontation with the shadow. This shadow is not an enemy from the outside. It is the hidden dimension within. It contains the fears you denied, the anger you suppressed, the envy you refused to name, and the insecurities you disguised as confidence. For a time, it is possible to outrun this inner figure by staying busy, distracted, or externally successful. But if you are truly called to growth, you will be led back to yourself. The confrontation is not dramatic in appearance, yet it is profound in effect. You begin to notice patterns in your reactions. You see how past wounds shape present decisions. You recognize that some of your conflicts with others are reflections of unresolved conflict within. This realization is uncomfortable because it removes the illusion that all struggle originates outside you, yet it is also liberating. For if the shadow is within, then transformation is possible within as well. Integration is the true work. The goal is not to destroy the shadow, but to understand it. What you once judged in yourself often carries energy that, when redirected, becomes strength. The anger that once harmed can become courage. The fear that once paralyzed can become caution and wisdom. The insecurity that once sought validation can become humility. To integrate the shadow is to accept that you are complex, that light and darkness coexist in the same soul. This acceptance does not weaken you, it makes you whole. When God closed your case, it was not because you were flawless, but because you were honest. You no longer pretended to be purely light. You acknowledged your depth and chose responsibility over denial. In doing so, you gained authority over what once controlled you. The chosen individual emerges not as someone without darkness, but as someone who has faced it and integrated it. That is the quiet triumph of the inner journey, and it is the foundation of lasting victory. There is a subtle but profound difference between ego-driven triumph and soul-centered victory. The ego measures success by comparison. It asks who noticed, who applauded, who was surpassed. It thrives on recognition and often feels restless even after achievement, because its hunger is never fully satisfied. Ego-driven triumph depends on external validation, and therefore it remains fragile. A single criticism can disturb it. A single setback can threaten it. Yet soul-centered victory arises from alignment rather than applause. It is the quiet knowing that you acted with integrity, that you honored your values, that you remained faithful to your inner calling even when no one was watching. This kind of victory does not need witnesses. It carries its own confirmation. When your case was closed, it was not because you defeated rivals or silenced every critic. It was because you no longer needed to prove your worth through noise. The striving softened. The comparison faded. You understood that your journey is distinct and that fulfillment is found in authenticity rather than superiority. As this understanding deepens, your definition of success changes. You begin to measure growth by depth of character instead of public image. You ask whether your actions reflect your convictions. You examine whether your choices bring coherence between your inner world and outer life. This alignment produces a steady peace that ego cannot manufacture. It allows you to celebrate others without feeling diminished. It enables you to accept correction without feeling destroyed. Soul-centered victory is resilient because it is rooted in purpose. It does not fluctuate with trends or opinions. It grows quietly through consistency, humility, and perseverance. When the verdict declared victory, it affirmed this alignment. It confirmed that you have moved beyond the need for constant defense. You no longer react to every challenge as a threat to identity. Instead, you respond with grounded confidence. In this way, true victory becomes a state of being rather than a moment of conquest. It is sustained not by pride, but by clarity and inner harmony. There is a profound tension between divine timing and human urgency. The human mind seeks quick resolution. It desires immediate answers, visible progress, and clear confirmation that effort has not been wasted. When these signs do not appear, doubt begins to whisper. You may question whether you have been overlooked or forgotten, yet divine timing operates in silence. It does not rush to satisfy impatience. It unfolds according to a rhythm that is often invisible until much later. During this waiting period, the noise of human judgment can grow loud. Opinions circulate, assumptions are formed. Some may interpret delay as failure, but delay is not denial. In many cases, it is preparation concealed from view. While the world speculates, deeper work is taking place within you. Character is being strengthened, vision is being clarified, dependencies are being refined. The silence that once felt oppressive begins to reveal itself as protective. It shields the process from premature exposure. As you mature in this understanding, you begin to resist the temptation to force outcomes. You recognize that rushing can distort what patience would perfect. Divine timing teaches trust. It asks you to continue faithfully even when results are not immediate. It trains you to value formation over recognition. In this space, your motivation is purified. You learn to act not for applause, but for alignment with purpose. When the moment finally arrives, it often appears sudden to observers. They see only the manifestation, not the long unseen preparation. Yet you know the truth. You know the nights of uncertainty, the seasons of obscurity, the perseverance when nothing seemed to move. The verdict of victory does not surprise you, because you have been growing toward it quietly. The case was closed long before the announcement was visible, and in honoring divine timing over human noise, you discovered a steadiness that cannot be shaken by delay or accelerated by pressure. There is a powerful transformation that occurs when accusation turns into affirmation. Accusation often begins internally. It is the voice that replays past mistakes, magnifies weaknesses, and questions your legitimacy. At times, it may also come from others who misunderstand your journey or judge your process without seeing your growth. When you live under accusation, you feel compelled to defend yourself constantly. You rehearse explanations. You anticipate criticism. You measure your worth against the verdicts of those around you. Yet there comes a decisive shift when you realize that not every voice deserves authority over your identity. Affirmation does not mean denial of past errors. It means recognition of present transformation. It is the understanding that growth has occurred, that lessons have been integrated, and that you are no longer defined by earlier chapters. This realization quiets the inner prosecutor. You no longer stand in a posture of defense. Instead, you stand in awareness, grounded in the truth of who you are becoming. As affirmation takes root, your relationship with your past changes. You stop seeing former failures as permanent labels and begin to view them as necessary stages. What once felt like condemnation becomes context. You recognize that the accusations you endured, whether internal or external, pushed you toward reflection and refinement. They forced you to confront inconsistencies and develop resilience. But affirmation marks the moment when that season has fulfilled its purpose. You do not erase your history, you reinterpret it through growth. This shift produces confidence that is neither loud nor arrogant. It is steady and composed. You no longer seek to prove your worth to every observer. Your life itself becomes the answer. The verdict of victory affirms that you have evolved. The accusations have lost their power because you have integrated their lessons. In this transformation, you discover that affirmation is not flattery. It is alignment with truth. And when truth anchors you, no lingering accusation can reclaim its former authority. Victory, in its deepest sense, is not conquest over others, but alignment with purpose. Many people imagine victory as a visible triumph, a moment when circumstances bend in their favor and observers acknowledge their success. Yet such moments, while satisfying, are temporary. They depend on external conditions that inevitably change. True victory unfolds within. It occurs when your actions, values, and inner convictions move in harmony. When you are aligned with purpose, you no longer measure progress by comparison or competition. You measure it by coherence. Are you living in a way that reflects what you believe? Are your decisions shaped by integrity rather than impulse? This alignment produces stability that cannot be shaken by temporary setbacks. Even when challenges arise, they do not feel like defeat, because you know you are moving in the direction of your calling. The verdict of victory was never about public applause. It was about inner confirmation that you are walking the path designed for your growth. As alignment deepens, clarity replaces confusion. You begin to recognize which opportunities resonate with your purpose and which merely distract you. This discernment protects your energy. It prevents you from chasing every possibility in search of validation. Instead, you act with intention. You understand that not every door needs to be opened and not every battle needs to be fought. Purpose becomes your compass. In moments of uncertainty, you return to it and find direction. This grounded orientation allows you to celebrate others without envy and to face obstacles without despair. Victory becomes a sustained state rather than a fleeting event. It is reflected in the consistency of your character, the steadiness of your choices, and the peace that accompanies your progress. When God closed your case and declared victory, it signified this alignment. You were not merely surviving, you were living intentionally. And in that intentional living, you discovered that the greatest triumph is becoming fully yourself. There comes a stage in the journey of the chosen when endurance itself becomes revelation. At first, you endure because you must. You withstand pressure, misunderstanding, delay, and uncertainty simply to survive the season. Yet over time, something shifts. Endurance is no longer passive tolerance. It becomes conscious strength. You begin to recognize that every challenge you faced demanded a response from your character. Each setback required patience. Each disappointment required recalibration. Each silence required trust. What once felt like random hardship begins to reveal a pattern of formation. You see that you were being trained in resilience, not punished by circumstance. This awareness transforms the meaning of your struggle. You are no longer asking, "Why is this happening to me?" but rather, "What is this shaping within me?" Endurance matures into insight. You discover capacities within yourself that comfort never would have awakened. The ability to remain steady under pressure becomes part of your identity. As this strength stabilizes, you stop fearing adversity in the same way. You do not seek difficulty, but you are no longer destabilized by it. you understand that growth often arrives disguised as discomfort. This realization produces quiet confidence. You begin to trust your capacity to navigate what once intimidated you. The chosen individual recognizes that victory is not proven in moments of ease, but in sustained faithfulness when outcomes are uncertain. The verdict of victory reflects this maturity. It acknowledges not a single dramatic act, but a series of consistent decisions to remain grounded, honest, and committed. You realize that the real evidence presented in your favor was your perseverance. You did not abandon your principles under pressure. You did not surrender to bitterness when misunderstood. You allowed the process to complete its work. In doing so, you moved beyond mere survival into wisdom. And that wisdom becomes the lasting sign that your case has indeed been closed in triumph. As you journey through life, there comes a realization that victory is not about a momentary applause or a dramatic win. It's about alignment with your purpose. True victory is not measured by external recognition, but by the alignment of your actions with your soul's calling. This kind of victory is profound because it speaks to your essence and the journey that you have taken to get there. The validation you seek does not come from the world's applause. It comes from within. You know when you are moving in alignment with your purpose because there is a deep sense of peace and satisfaction, regardless of the external circumstances. This inner peace becomes the greatest form of victory. When you are aligned with your purpose, you walk through life with confidence, not because you are invulnerable to challenges, but because you understand that each step is a part of a larger process that you are meant to experience. In this alignment, your actions are no longer driven by fear or the desire to be seen or validated. Instead, your motivation shifts towards fulfilling a deeper calling. When challenges arise, you approach them not with the urgency of needing to prove yourself, but with a sense of calm, knowing that they are part of the necessary process of growth. The obstacles you face no longer feel like barriers to success. Instead, they become opportunities for expansion and learning. The shift from external to internal validation allows you to remain steady even when external circumstances fluctuate. The verdict of victory, then, is not something you claim or strive for, but something you come into naturally as a result of living authentically and aligned with your purpose. You realize that your worth is not contingent on the approval of others, but is an inherent part of your existence, and this recognition transforms your approach to everything in life. When the noise of the world quiets down, you can hear the stillness of your own heart and soul. This is where true victory is found, in the ability to stand firm in your truth, regardless of the noise around you. It is easy to be swayed by the opinions and judgments of others, to chase validation through achievement or recognition. But when you are aligned with your purpose, you no longer need to seek external approval. Your path is clear because it is your own. The external noise fades, and in its place is the quiet but powerful knowing that you are on the right path. This is where victory lies, not in a singular moment of achievement, but in the constant alignment with your deeper truth, day after day, step after step. The victory you seek is not one that comes with applause, but one that comes with the silent satisfaction of knowing you are exactly where you need to be. Ultimately, this journey leads to an understanding that victory is not a destination, it is a process. It is a continuous unfolding of your true self. When you stop seeing victory as something that happens at the end of a race, but rather as the expression of every step along the way, you begin to experience victory in the smallest of moments. The moments when you choose authenticity over approval, when you choose peace over chaos, when you choose purpose over popularity. Each of these moments, no matter how seemingly insignificant, is an expression of victory. The final verdict is not one that comes from the outside, it is the quiet affirmation from within that you have lived according to your true self, and that, in itself, is the greatest victory of all. True victory does not always manifest in the way the world expects. It is not always the dramatic moment of triumph when everything falls into place. Often, the greatest victories occur in the unseen, quiet moments of growth, when you are being refined without applause or recognition. This type of victory is not dependent on circumstances or others' opinions. It is rooted in the personal evolution that takes place in the hidden spaces of your life. In these moments, you are tested not by external forces, but by your own internal challenges. It is easy to look at someone's success and assume that victory was instantaneous or effortlessly achieved. However, real victory is the cumulative result of small, consistent choices made over time. Decisions to rise after failure, to keep going despite setbacks, and to trust in the process even when results are not immediately visible. This is the victory that no one can take from you because it is embedded in the essence of your character. When you are aligned with your purpose, victory becomes something more subtle than winning a contest or defeating an adversary. It is a feeling of peace, contentment, and clarity. You know, deep down, that you are walking the path you were meant to walk. And in that certainty, you can face challenges with resilience rather than fear. Victory in this sense is not the absence of obstacles, but the strength to meet them with courage and grace. It is the ability to continue moving forward with conviction, even when the world around you is uncertain. The true victory is that you never gave up on your purpose, no matter the difficulty of the journey. It is not measured by the ease of the road, but by the faithfulness with which you walk it. The moments of struggle, though hard, become the very things that build your character, preparing you for even greater challenges ahead. As you embrace the deeper meaning of victory, you begin to see that external success is not the only measure of achievement. Victory is found in the quiet moments of perseverance, when you choose to honor your commitments even when it feels easier to quit. It is seen in the courage to be authentic when the world encourages conformity. It is found in the grace with which you handle setbacks, using them as opportunities for learning and growth rather than viewing them as failures. In this way, victory becomes an internal state, a sense of alignment and authenticity that cannot be swayed by external validation. You stop measuring success by what others think of you, and instead measure it by how true you remain to your own values and purpose. This shift in perspective allows you to embrace the full spectrum of your journey, knowing that even the painful or difficult moments contribute to the victory of your becoming. Victory, in the end, is about embracing the fullness of your humanity, acknowledging both your strengths and your vulnerabilities. It is recognizing that you are not meant to be perfect, but to be whole. Wholeness does not mean being flawless. It means being fully integrated, accepting all parts of yourself, the light and the shadow, and knowing that you are worthy of love and success despite your imperfections. When God closes your case, it is not because you are without fault, but because you have faced those faults, understood their lessons, and allowed them to shape you. Victory is not in the elimination of mistakes, but in the transformation that occurs through them. It is the quiet affirmation that, despite everything, you have stayed true to yourself, and that, in itself, is the greatest victory of all.